Get this. Imagine cooking up a life-saving drug, not in a lab, but by basically feeding information to an AI. That's kind of what we're wading into today. The world where machine learning is elbowing its way into chemistry.
And not just any chemistry. We're talking about the really hardcore stuff, quantum chemistry, where you're trying to predict how a molecule behaves based on the whims of its tiniest particles.
Yeah, you're not just mixing baking soda and vinegar here. This is hardcore science. So for those of us who haven't grappled with quantum mechanics since college or ever, give us the quick and dirty, what's the big deal with predicting molecular properties?
It's the key to everything. How a molecule vibrates, how it reacts with other molecules, whether it'll cure a disease and blow up in your face, it all boils down to those quantum properties.
Okay, high stakes then. But I'm guessing it's not as simple as glancing at a molecule and just knowing its properties, right?
You guess right. Traditionally, we've relied on quantum mechanics equations, but they're incredibly complex. It's like trying to predict the weather patterns of a hurricane by analyzing every single air molecule possible. But it takes ages, even with supercomputers.
So enter stage, left machine learning, our knight in shining silicon.
Exactly. Specifically, we're talking about a type of model called message-passing neural networks, or MPNNs. You see, just like those facial recognition apps that seem to know everyone you've ever met, MPNNs can spot patterns in the structure of molecules.
Okay, that's kind of blowing my mind. We're used to AI understanding images, but now they're decoding molecules. How does that even work?
Think of it like this. Each atom in a molecule is constantly chatting with its neighbors, sending messages about its own properties and the bonds they share.
Wait, so my water molecule is having a little gossip session right now?
In a way, yes. And just like any good gossip chain, these messages get passed around and refined over time. Each atom updates its knowledge based on the information it receives, and eventually you get a really detailed picture of the entire molecule.
So it's like a molecular game of telephone, but instead of the message getting distorted, it actually gets more accurate with each whisper? That's wild. But how do we know if these MPNNs are just gossiping or actually producing useful insights?
That's where our deep dive comes in. We're going to explore a fascinating research paper titled Neural Message Passing for Quantum Chemistry. Think of it as our backstage pass to the world of MPNNs.
Our backstage pass to a molecular rave. I am so there. But before we jump into the nitty-gritty, give us the two-sentence overview of this research. What were they trying to achieve?
They essentially threw a massive data set of molecules at these MPNNs like a challenge to see if they could predict a whole bunch of molecular properties, 13 to be exact, just by analyzing the structure.
13 different properties. That's like asking someone to predict your favorite food, your blood type, and your astrological sign just by looking at your social media profile.
Exactly. It's a tall order. And that's what makes this research so compelling. They wanted to push the boundaries of what's possible with machine learning in chemistry, and what they found has some pretty huge implications.
Okay, now you've officially piqued my curiosity. Let's dive into this research paper and uncover how these MPNNs actually work their magic.
All right, let's break down how this whole message passing thing actually plays out in the world of molecules.
Because I have to admit, it still feels a bit like we're giving atoms way too much credit. Are they really sending little emails back and forth?
Not quite emails, but you're getting the idea. Imagine a simple molecule like water, H2O. You've got your oxygen atom in the middle, and it's bonded to two hydrogen atoms.
Okay, I can picture that H2O, my old friend.
In an MPNN, each of these atoms is treated as a node in a network. Think of it like a social network for atoms. And just like you might share information about your job or hobbies on your profile, each atom holds information about its properties, things like its atomic number, how many bonds it can form, and so on.
So the oxygen atom is basically bragging about being oxygen and having two hydrogen buddies.
Exactly. And those hydrogen atoms are sending out their own messages too, sharing their own properties. Now here's where the passing part comes in. These messages don't just sit there. They get passed along the bonds which act like the friend connections in our atom social network.
Okay, I'm with you so far. So oxygen tells hydrogen it's oxygen. Hydrogen says back, hey, I'm hydrogen, and everyone's happy.
Not quite. This is where it gets really interesting. The messages aren't just simple statements. They're more like mathematical functions that carry information. And with each step of the passing process, these functions get updated and refined based on the information received from neighbors.
Hold on, so it's not just a one-time exchange. They keep passing these increasingly complex messages back and forth.
You got it. Think of it like this. The first message might be a simple introduction, but as the messages get passed back and forth, they start to incorporate more and more information about the entire network. Oh, you're bonded to that hydrogen who's also bonded to an oxygen. Interesting.
So it's like a molecular gossip chain where the more they talk, the more they know about the whole group's dynamics.
Precisely. It's this iterative process of message passing that allows the MPNN to develop a very nuanced understanding of the molecule. It's not just looking at individual atoms in isolation, it's considering the whole network of interactions.
Okay, that makes so much more sense now. But how do we go from these gossiping atoms to actually predicting something useful about the molecule's properties? Okay, so our little water molecule is buzzing with all this information. But how do we translate that into actual predictions about its properties? It still feels like we're in the land of theory here.
That's where the QM9 dataset comes in, the proving ground for our MPNNs.
QM9, it sounds like a top secret government project.
It's pretty close. QM9 is like a giant library of molecules, nearly 134,000 of them, each with 13 key properties measured and documented.
13 properties. We're talking beyond just it's wet for water, right?
Oh, absolutely. QM9 gets into the nitty-gritty. How much energy it takes to break the molecule apart, how it responds to electric fields, even its 3D shape stuff that dictates how it behaves in the real world.
So the researchers basically fed this massive data set to the MPNNs and said, okay, impress us. Predict what these molecules are all about.
Exactly. And remember how we talked about tweaking the recipe for those message passing functions? This is where it gets seriously clever.
Okay, hit me with the secret ingredients.
One thing they experimented with was adding shortcuts for long-range interactions. You see, in a large, complex molecule, atoms far apart in the structure can still influence each other, even if they're not directly bonded.
It's like how your friend's cousin's Instagram post can somehow still affect your day.
Precisely. They also use these things called virtual graph elements, which basically give the MPNN a bird's-eye view of the entire molecule, instead of getting bogged down in local interactions.
So it's like giving our gossiping atoms a map of the whole party instead of them just chatting in their own little circles.
You got it. It's all about giving the MPNN as much information as possible to make the most accurate predictions.
All right, enough with the build-up. How did the MPNNs actually perform? Did they live up to the hype?
Get this. For 11 out of those 13 properties, they nailed it. We're talking chemical accuracy, meaning their predictions were as good as the gold standard methods chemists have been using for decades.
No way. So these MPNNs are more than just a cool party trick. They're actually producing useful results.
And here's the kicker. They even outperformed some of those traditional methods in terms of accuracy.
Hold on. I thought those traditional methods were based on rock-solid physics and took forever to compute. How are these MPNNs pulling off such accurate predictions and potentially much faster?
That's the million-dollar question, and it has scientists buzzing with excitement. It seems like these MPNNs are picking up on underlying patterns and relationships that even our most sophisticated theories haven't fully grasped yet.
So it's almost like the MPNNs are uncovering hidden laws of chemistry right before our eyes.
Exactly. And remember how we said they were experimenting with different ingredients for the message passing functions? Well, one of the most surprising findings was that the most accurate MPNN didn't even need to know the exact 3D positions of all the atoms in a molecule.
Wait, really? I thought knowing the precise arrangement of every atom was crucial for predicting how the molecule behaves.
You'd think so, right? But this discovery is a game changer. It suggests that these MPNNs are learning something fundamental about how atoms interact, a kind of chemical intuition that transcends the need for complete structural information.
That's incredible. So instead of just mimicking our existing knowledge of chemistry, these MPNNs are pushing the boundaries of what we thought was possible.
And that's just the tip of the iceberg. This research opens up a whole new world of possibilities. Imagine being able to predict the properties of molecules that are too complex to even synthesize in a lab yet, or designing new materials with tailor-made properties just by feeding data to an AI.
That sounds like something straight out of science fiction. But if MPNNs can achieve this level of accuracy with relatively small molecules, imagine what they could do with even larger, more complex structures. Proteins, DNA. The possibilities seem endless.
They really do. Of course, there are still challenges. Scaling these models to handle massive biomolecules will require even more powerful algorithms and computing resources. But the researchers are already exploring ways to do this, using techniques like attention mechanisms, which help the MPNNs focus on the most important parts of a molecule.
So it's like giving our molecular gossips a little more focus, helping them cut through the noise and hone in on the juiciest bits of information.
Exactly. It's all about optimizing these MPNNs to tackle the next frontier of molecular complexity.
This deep dive has been an incredible journey. Who knew that atoms gossiping could lead to such groundbreaking discoveries? It seems like we're on the verge of a revolution in chemistry, all thanks to the power of machine learning.
It's an exciting time to be a scientist,
Yeah.
that's for sure. And for our listeners, the next time you take a sip of water, just think. Those tiny molecules hold the key to unlocking even bigger scientific mysteries, and AI might just be the key to unlocking their secrets.
What a mind-blowing thought. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of machine learning and chemistry. Until next time, keep those curiosity gears turning.